Hello, everyone's Forest Focus. It was a night that had fans dreaming again before kick-off, but ultimately Nottingham Forest lost 3-0 to Manchester City last night. We'll discuss the bad and not so bad performance as well, looking ahead to the trip to Manchester United on Saturday, in the company of, first of all, former Reds midfielder Lewis McGugan. Lewis, good to have you back with us at short notice as well. You've been a hero as ever. How are you this evening?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to come back on. It's been a while, so yeah, more than happy to be here.
Well, last time you were on was after post-match shows when we were winning all the time. So yeah, interesting to hear your take. Now it's gone against us a little bit, but we'll get into that. Second guest today is returning to the show as well, Harrogate keeper, who was really popular last time he was on, and analysing Matt Sells and Carlos Miguel. So good to get James Belshaw back on to talk about a game in particular. James, how are you this evening?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Yeah, thanks for inviting me back on. Pleasure to do it.
Yeah, looking forward to it, getting into the game. Kick us off, Lou. What did you make of it in general last night? How gutted, or just one of them when you're playing a top team?
Yeah, I think a lot of talk in kind of the last couple of weeks has probably been about the state of Man City and the kind of situation that they're going through. It'd be a good time to play them. I think. Listen, I think it was good to play them, and it gave us a bit more optimism. But again, they aren't the club and the manager and the players. They haven't done what they've done. They was always going to bounce back. And I think if you look at, I was having a conversation with someone today, and I think it's that they unleashed De Bruyne. I think he had a bit of a point to prove, and he kind of came back in and pretty much controlled large parts of the game. So it's tough one. I look at it and I think again, if we wind back to kind of the start of when we went into the Premier League and the 6-0 game there and where we kind of and the kind of difference in terms of the squad and the personnel in it, I think there's always a positive. I think if you look at the game in general, I think they was on top a lot. You look at they had 2 chances. They had the header which he should have scored. He's gone through as well, which he should have scored then. So potentially it could have been a lot more. Chris Wood, on the other hand, scores that chance. We could be talking about a different outcome. So listen, I think there's a lot of ifs and buts in there. But again, we're playing against the best team in the league, the best team in Europe over probably the last 3 or 4 seasons. So I think we have to understand where we are. And it's a case of a bit of the Newcastle game again. It's a little bit of a taste to settle things down and let us not get carried away. We made a fantastic start. We're going to go through a bit where things maybe ain't going to go our way. I said previously when I was on last that there will be a little bit of a blip. There always is. This potentially could be it with the difficult fixtures, but let's come out on the other side of it and kick on.
I'll throw it to James in 1 second, but before we get going, thank you very much to Richard Spray for the $30. He was supposed to give me a $5 to help transport a mug to America ahead of Christmas, and he sent me 30, which you didn't need to do, Richard. So thank you very much. Very generous of you. What about you, James, from a sort of a neutral point of view and a player's point of view? You come off a game like that where you've probably gone into it with optimism. How would you be reacting to it in general after a 3-0 win before we get into some specifics?
Yeah, I think Lewis hit the nail on the head in terms of perspective. You're going against a side that's won 4 Premier League titles in a row, and having De Bruyne back, having him and Grealish in the 10s with Doku and Bernardo Silva outside, Haaland up top, it's a daunting prospect for any team in the Premier League. And I think Forest have been performing well of late, but I think the fans would have expected to come away with nothing from City, and anything's kind of a bonus. You go there, you get a point. But I think what will disappoint Nuno is just the manner of the goals, and I'm sure we'll get into it. But there were the goals could have been stopped. There's a bit of sort of lapses in concentration, which I think has cost Forest. But look, they had chances. They created chances early on. Gibbs White's forced a save from Ortega. Like we touched on the Chris Wood chance, if that goes in, still for me, I think City do go on and win the game. But you get a bit more positivity. You get a foothold in the game, and then you've got a point. I think it'd have been 1-1 at the time to hold on to, but yeah, I don't think there's any need for Forest fans to panic. It's been working. They look at the last few games. Obviously, lost at home to Newcastle. The Ipswich game was a big one to go and win that. They've won that. And then anything from the game against City, like you said, they've been the best team in Europe and the Premier League for the last 6 years, 4, 5, 6 years. So yeah, it would have been a bonus to get something from that game. So yeah, I don't think it's panic stations for Nuno or anyone yet.
Nuno's getting some flack, Lewis, for it's kind of a bit contradictory. He picked quite an attacking team with the two wingers, and then it felt like we kind of sat off them. We're a bit lax in our defensive duties, but the sentiment was we showed them too much respect and didn't get into them enough in the first 20 minutes when they're kind of at a low ebb mentally, arguably. Do you see that, or do you think that's a bit harsh on Nuno and the approach that we took to the game?
Yeah, I can see both sides. I think again, the showing them respect. I think we have to understand that these are top players that at any moment can turn it on. As James said, when you look at the formation in terms of what City tried to do, they went with a bit more attacking. Grealish kind of central, Doku kind of really out wide, which kind of always stayed out there, which allowed that kind of space for Grealish and De Bruyne to get in that hole. So listen, I think it's always tough. Like you say, you go to the champions, you go to the best team in the league. You have to try and be respectful, but also try and put your kind of imprint on the game. And I think again, if we go there and just shut up shop, I think that there's people probably have their opinion of we really go and try. So listen, you're always going to kind of make everybody happy. People are entitled to their opinions. I think it's important the way we look at it. The Ipswich game, which I don't think we performed very well, but the 3 points was vital leading up into the next kind of few games that we've got. If we can get anything out of these next few games, the Man City game, Manchester United game, it would have been a bonus. We've got 2 tough games. I think it's Villa and then Brentford and Tottenham, which again, like I said, it's a really tough period. And when we come out on the other side of it, I think it will show us exactly where we are. We kind of want to be, where we potentially could end up. So I think let's not get too carried away either way. We've had a little bit of a blip, but we've played against some very good teams. How do we look on the kind of the start of January, and then we'll reassess kind of from a fan point of view then.
Thank you very much as well to Jed Cracknell. Very good of you, Jed, with the £2. Appreciate that very much. And good to have a few people with us this evening. Do hit like if you would. Makes a big difference as ever. Just before we get into the goals, James, De Bruyne was so central to it. Where did you put the balance in terms of his quality shining through versus us giving him a helping hand? Is it always a bit of both, or was it mostly De Bruyne just been typically back at it after months away, and it's always against your team when he shines?
Yeah, look, he's one of the best players in the world. He's been one of the best players in the world for the past few years, and when he's playing in that sort of a free role, because Grealish is occupying one of the players in there, so De Bruyne kind of has that ability to roam. What Pep set up to do well was to isolate the fullbacks 1v1. So you've got Aina against Doku, and then obviously Moreno on the other side against Bernardo Silva. So they're isolated. And the biggest thing Pep did was push Guardiola on. And I think Nuno tried to counteract that after the first goal, put Jota on him. So Jota was tracking Guardiola. But you look at the 2 chances Lewis alluded to that Guardiola had. He had the header and then he had the one put through. If you look where Jota is, he's sort of 5-10 yards off him. And like I said, those little lapses in concentration have allowed Guardiola to go in. But they create a 4v3 box overload in midfield. Gibbs White almost redundant in the 10. I think if you're going to play a 10, you need to be a team that's going to dominate the ball. You're going to have possession of the ball. And I don't think going to City and playing with Gibbs White in the 10 was probably the smartest move. But look, I'm not a manager. I'm just kind of looking in hindsight after the fact. And Forest did look a more solid outfit when they switched to 3 at the back and you dropped Gibbs White in there. Bit more legs and energy. It meant that the outside centre-backs could double up in wide areas. So it negates kind of that threat. But yeah, look, Kevin De Bruyne is a top player, and the rest of the Man City squad aren't bad either. So you're playing against world-class players, and look, Forest are 6th in the league. Like, you ask any Forest fan at this point in the league, would you be 6th? And you're, I think, 13 points above the bottom 3. Look, let's get to 40 points, see where Forest are, and then kick on from that. And like Lewis said, don't get too high, don't get too low. Have some perspective with it, because it's been an unbelievable season for Forest.
You were nodding along there, Lewis, about Gibbs White as a number 10. It was your position. He looked like a luxury last night. What did you make of it?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's a tricky one. I think the player that he is, and when, as James said, when you're on top, I think a lot of the time he became detached away from the midfield too, and he kind of played as a kind of second striker, which then allowed De Bruyne, Grealish was plenty of time 2v2. If you look at the first goal, Gundogan comes running through to play the cross. Again, that's that runner from the deep, which he didn't track. So personally, I would have preferred maybe an Anderson in that position, because I think he has more of the kind of central midfielder characteristics, where yes, he can go and be that 10, but he also has that kind of characteristics, and the way he plays, he can go and drop in and be another third midfielder. I think when you go and play away from home, especially against the better teams that predominantly are going to have the ball a lot more, I think you need that style more of a midfield than the one that's going to be more of a kind of a false nine. Sorry, kind of a second striker.
What was your take on the first goal then, James? Is it the big thing of Gundogan running off Gibbs White that creates it all? What else can we do better there, would you say?
Yeah. I think it starts from Aina. I think the 2v2 outside, I think Aina steps up, makes the wrong decision, and then lets the ball go down the side. And as that goes into Gundogan, like Lewis said, Gibbs White is a couple of yards off him, and you can't give these players that time. He's then allowed to obviously dink the ball to the back post. Kevin De Bruyne is there attacking late. But the issue then is, if you watch Bernardo Silva's movement before the ball, he takes Moreno inside, but as that ball goes over Moreno's head, Moreno then kind of reverts to dropping back onto the line, actually gets in Selva's way, trying to obviously block the goal. Whereas if he stays with his man, maybe he gets a toe on it, maybe he clears the ball. But yeah, you look at any goal, you can break it down to 2, 3, 4 actions that lead up to the goal. But yeah, like we said, Gibbs White not tracking the runner, and then Moreno sort of leaving Bernardo Silva to try and cover an area of the goal where you think Murillo was already there and the keeper was. So yeah, I think it's again a poor goal to concede when you look at the numbers that Forest had in the box to deal with that situation as well. I think when you've got that many people in the box, you find work, you lock onto your nearest man and deal with it that way, and maybe you can nullify it there.
We'll just come on to the second goal in 1 second, but before we do, a word for the Trent navigation. Coming up on Saturday, next Saturday, after the Villa game, is Paul McGregor's band, The Upper Body. I think it's his 50th birthday as well, the former Reds winger, and he's playing free entry. Here's what you can... I say here's what you can expect. I've no idea if that's them or not, but it's free entry anyway straight after the game. So get down and enjoy that one. Hopefully after a win. We'll touch on that next week, and we'll focus on Man United before then. Back to the game, Lewis. Second goal. Pick both your brains about this one. What was your general take on it, Lewis? And I'll ask you a couple of specifics. Was that a really bad one to concede or not?
Yeah, I know there's a lot of there's been a lot of talk, obviously, with kind of Yates's part in it, and that, and I look at it and I think myself, we look like I said, I love Yates. I think what he gives to the team, no one else does. That's why all through these managers, he continues to come and play and be a focal point. And we sit on here in a kind of that little the stuff that he does week in, week out, that goes one up opposition, them little fouls that he gets. That's what we like to see. Sometimes you ain't going to get them. Sometimes potentially can go against you. That's gone against us, which has allowed obviously Doku to have that free. He's played the ball inside me. It's a fantastic finish. That finish is the difference. That's why he is who he is. That he's been at the top kind of end of the Premier League and European football, because I think it's a lot of people think middle of the goal, it's an easy finish, but the way he's wrapped that into the corner, I don't think the goalkeeper's got no chance. And listen, them kind of players to be free in that area, there's only probably going to be one outcome.
So do you blame Ryan Yates for that, or do we really not know watching here to what degree he got caught? It's a difficult question to answer, but do you blame Yates for going down there, Lewis?
Listen, I think initially Doku's coming inside. Yates, he's tried to engage him. Sometimes, like I say, that can happen. He's tried to engage him, but I think there's a lot of things that's happened after that. De Bruyne is now free on the edge of the box. They're probably the best player in their team. So yes, we can look at potentially if Yates stays up and it doesn't go down, will we get there? But again, that happens in a game. Stuff like that happen. It's the next action, and this still wouldn't. I'm sure for the manager and his staff players, when they look back at it, they still won't be happy with kind of what transpires after that.
Yeah, I think for me, just watching it, I was more annoyed, James, that De Bruyne you can't give De Bruyne that much space. Obviously, you watch it, you give him a lot of credit. It's really clever movement, but he's peeled off not one but two of our midfielders there, arguably, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think obviously Lewis has touched on the Ryan Yates involvement, but I think for me, when he's gone past Ryan Yates, Doku, Dominguez doesn't really cover himself in glory because he neither engages Doku, but he doesn't stay with De Bruyne. So he sort of does half and half, and that gives Doku the room. If Doku wants to shoot, he can, but then he can slide that ball into De Bruyne. But then I think Gibbs White's on the periphery of it. Like you said, there's the numbers in the box, but Kevin De Bruyne is 12, 13 yards out, and he's got no one within 5 yards of him. So there's only going to be one outcome when he gets the ball. So for me, I think Dominguez has either got to be more assertive and engage Doku to kind of make Doku's mind up, whether he then cuts inside or cut the pass off to De Bruyne, or he has to back off and go and pick up De Bruyne, allowing, I think it's Milenkovic or one of the centre halves to then come out and engage. So I think he kind of gets caught doing neither one nor the other. And then, yeah, it's a fantastic finish. And I agree with Lewis, keeper's got no chance for that one.
Obviously, the moment just before that, such a big swing as well. I'll stick with you, James, for this one, because I felt like Ortega seems to do a pretty good job on Chris Wood there. And I mean, is that fair? Did he make it hard for Chris Wood to delay his shot a bit longer than he might have wanted, or not?
Yeah, so first of all, we're talking about Kevin De Bruyne. That was nearly his best assist of the game. He's gone to play the pass back, and Chris Wood's gone through. And look, Chris Wood does really well. Strong, holds off. I think it's Diaz. He holds off Diaz and goes through. Now, as a keeper, when you're dealing with those 1v1 scenarios, in our head, you've got to think he's got to beat me. So you've got to make it as difficult as possible to him. It's an emergency defending scenario where he's the favourite, Chris Wood's the favourite to put the ball in the back of the net. You've got to stand as big and as long as possible to make his life difficult, give him a choice to make. Now, what Chris Wood tries to take the shot early. So as soon as he goes through that movement and Ortega sees his head drop down to the ball, Ortega has to make a decision. So what Ortega's done is he's gambled to his left, because with a right footer, if you're opening that up to Ortega's left side, you've got a bigger distance to cover. So as he drops down to his left, you can leave your trailing leg to the right. If you think the angle of a right footer trying to make that shot, it's potentially going to come into the keeper before it bends into that corner. So Chris Wood allows Ortega to kind of go down and gamble, but you look at the angle from behind the goal, Ortega does well. But I think for me, I'm being really critical. Look, Chris Wood's a Premier League striker. I'm not a Premier League striker. But I do think there is a decent enough gap in that near post. But look, we're talking about milliseconds, fractions of a second for Chris Wood to make that decision. But Ortega does what he should do. He makes it difficult, stands as long as possible, goes to ground only when Chris Wood's ready to sort of pull his foot back and strike through the ball. So, yeah, keeper Ortega does really well there for me.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it, Lewis? As Derek says, Chris Wood, he's been so good. I feel like he sort of earns a pass in this one, I guess. Or do you have to be ruthless and say, this is Premier League football, you threw one-on-one at the Etihad, you've got to score?
Yeah, you can, but he's a striker. He's going to miss plenty more. It's just that's unfortunately, that's just the game. That's how it is. The big thing is he's getting into them situations. And that's what we get. He's getting into situations. If you look at the start of the season, as last season, they drop in and he's finding himself in them situations, he's scoring goals. So that's where we have to be happy. At times, he's going to miss opportunities. But the key thing is getting them opportunities. When we need to worry about it is when them opportunities stop coming, games start passing him by. At this point in time, yes, he'll be gutted because potentially he scores that. It's a different game, but that's the whole point. That's the job of a striker. He's got to dust himself down, be ready to go, because Manchester United, he'll probably get exactly the same chance or maybe an easier chance, and he's got to be ready to go and deliver and score the goals.
Yeah, he gets fewer chances than just about any striker in the league. I mean, Haaland misses more chances than Chris Wood, so I don't really hold it against him, as long as he takes the next one, I guess. We made this change at half-time, James. We go to a back three. Morato comes on. I felt like we looked better second half. It's obviously, City are in control of the game and can dictate it at 2-0. But did you like that change? Was it a positive one overall?
For me, it was. I alluded to it earlier. The way City set up was to isolate the fullbacks 1v1, and they weren't getting enough help. Doku was running riot down that left side. So I think switching to a back three, what Forest did really well, they dealt with Haaland well all night. I think Haaland had one shot early on, but apart from that, didn't really get into the game much. It was mainly the four behind him that were causing Forest problems. But by switching to a three, you allow on Doku's side, you allow the right side centre half to go out and double up in wide areas. The middle centre back can slide across, and then the left side centre back. So you still got a 2v1 on Haaland in the box, and then the opposite side fullback will cover around. But I think Forest looked more solid. You had obviously Gibbs White dropped a bit deeper in there. Thought he was more effective from a deeper role, and then you look to hit Forest on the counter attack, and I think Elanga looked a really sharp outlet on the wing. I think he was a sort of bright light on that left side, running with the ball, getting down. I think there was one he cut inside as well across the byline. He's pulled one back. There's a case where Jota, for the Gibbs White chance, Jota wins the ball high. I think it's Guardiola. He wins it off, plays it back to Gibbs White, and Gibbs White forces the save from Ortega. So, look, I think Forest were more secure as a three. In hindsight, would you have done that in the first half? Again, it's easy for us to sit here and say we'd have done that. Nuno's obviously set his team up how he thinks best, but for me, it was a lot more solid as a three.
Yeah, I was flicking through Twitter afterwards, which is never the best thing to do, but it feels, maybe it's just the way when I was searching, but if Elanga was getting really mixed reviews, some praise, a lot of giving him pelters, Lewis. I mean, I thought he was actually one of our better players last night. I agree with James. What do you make of probably both the wingers I'll ask you about, Jota and Elanga? How did you rate their performances?
In spells, I think that's where we've been all season in terms of our wingers. I think they've had little good spells, but in terms of consistency, I don't think we've quite got that yet. Am I right I think I heard a stat last night that Elanga's not scored in 26 games.
That's probably right. I'll go back and check.
I heard that on the commentary, yeah, so I haven't checked it.
Which, for me, that lies a problem. If you're looking where we want to go to our next level, and I've said this season, I think we've had very good performances. I think our wingers have performed very well in parts. Potentially Hudson always had a good game. Then Elanga's been a bit quiet. Elanga's had a really good game. Hudson-Odoi's been a bit quiet. Obviously Jota's coming in. Obviously Sosa there, and I think we need potentially a little bit more from our wingers in terms of goal contribution, in terms of both sides. I think they've both got the ability to do it. They've both got the characteristics to go and do it, but I think we've had it in little spells so far this season. And again, if that stat is right, for me, that's not good enough. When if you're a winger in a Premier League in this kind of era of football, you need to be trying to get in as close to double figures as possible. And I think that as a kind of that attacking front four, I think that straight away should be your aim. Again, with little plays in there, there's assists in there, you can have that. But I think for goals, when we're talking about contribution, yes, Chris Wood has been fantastic, but we can't just leave it up to him. Again, that falls onto Gibbs White again. I've always said I think he's a fantastic player, but to play in that role, I think he needs to score more goals, and I think that we need to share that kind of goals around that front area and not just have that reliance on Chris Wood. But I think again, Jota shown a little bit of spells. Yes, he chased down Guardiola and put it to Gibbs White, so that was a little bit of a good spell. But do I think right now he's potentially better off the bench? I know we had this conversation Tuesday, Matt. I still think potentially better off the bench. I think he's a good impact player. I think right now, from the start, I'm not quite sure. I think Sosa potentially needs a little bit more time. I think he's got a little bit something different than the other three. But yes, I just think from a general kind of fan point of view, I think we need a little bit more from all our wingers.
Elanga's last goal was February, which would tally with 20, 25 games, 26 games against Newcastle when we lost. I mean, you touched on my next question already there about Morgan's only goal, Lewis, was Southampton away. So as we go into January, and there's obviously some kind of pot of money to spend because we didn't buy a striker. Everyone's saying buy a striker. I think we discussed this on one show this week. Would you actually instead look for a winger or someone who can get more goals from an advanced midfield position and just hope that Chris Wood keeps scoring or Tyro keeps scoring? And would you invest that money somewhere else in the team then?
Listen, I think it's a difficult one. We sat here kind of when the transfer window shut, and we was quite nervous about not bringing in another striker. But again, Wood has answered that, and he's come out at the start of the season and he's been terrific. So you look in terms of a winger, we've got 4, so you add in something different there. I think you're always looking to add, but it has to make sure it's not a number. It's not, say, for quantity, because that will kind of add another one in there where potentially you don't need another one. But if they are that little bit different in terms of quality, I think you possibly look at it. The potential attacking midfielder, I think a little bit, that's where potentially we've already got a problem. I know that that's another thing we spoke about on Tuesday. I look at it and I think to myself, when we had that little spell, you look at Leicester away, we had the Yates, Dominguez, and Anderson. I thought that midfield three worked really well. And I thought then, obviously, Gibbs White was out at that point in time. And I felt it was quite harsh on Anderson to come out of the team at that point. I thought he was really playing well. I thought he was getting that run of games, and every game he was getting better. So potentially to add another attacking midfielder into that, how does he play? Because you've got Morgan, obviously, he's mostly times when he's fit, he plays. Anderson is out the team trying to get back in that position. So I think that will probably bring more headaches, if I'm honest. I think the quality is there within them too, but it's just trying to find the right balance. And again, I think Morgan brings so much. But again, we're playing in that position. For me, he needs to score more goals.
Callum, no, I don't have a brother called Paul. I don't know where you got that one from, but no, I don't. But I'll ask James this one. I might ask Lewis it as well. I can't get Lewis on board with this plan of mine, James, that I think Elliot Anderson should play number 10 and Lewis should play number 8. You haven't seen that much of them, but can you see something in switching those two round potentially and having Anderson as the number 10?
What you mean, Gibbs White, not Lewis?
Sorry, I'll ask you that question, James. Lewis can play number 10 in that team if he wants again, but would you play more Gibbs White as an 8?
Yeah,
you know that.
No, I'd. You know what? I played with Elliot when he came on loan to Bristol Rovers, and he was by far the best player in the team. He played left of a front three, and I think from January to the end of the season, we went on a run and ended up getting promoted on the last day. And our sort of mantra for the last 4 months was get the ball to Elliot, just because he's miles better than anyone else on the pitch, and he would win games for us cutting in off the left from a front three. Now, I like Elliot as an 8. I think he's got legs and energy, and I don't know whether could you play them both as an 8? I don't know. Could you have 2 8s, Gibbs White, Anderson? Could you sit Yates behind them? You know what I mean? These are all sort of potential options. Look, they're both fantastic players. Gibbs White, he's Forest sort of your main signing, your talisman. But there might be situations like Lewis said, if he doesn't fit into the side, and you've got that midfield 3 there that worked so well against Leicester. Could that be an option to look at? It's about picking the right players for the system that Nuno wants to play, as opposed to fitting a system around certain individuals for games. Look, I think Gibbs White's an excellent player. He's a very, very talented footballer. he can play a bit deeper, as he showed in the second half, with his work ethic, his desire. And yeah, Elliott, I think, can play as an 8, 10, or like I said, I've seen Elliott wide off the left. Maybe that's something for him to look at.
Yeah, what about that, Lewis? You had a season off the left and it worked, very well. It's a tricky role to play, but it looks like he's got the skill sets. Obviously, it presents problems around Hudson-Odoi or whoever plays out there, but Anderson off the left is an option, but maybe.
Yeah, I think it's again. I think you look at it where football's going, where the Premier League is. When I played off the left, we played pretty much a kind of a 4-4-2, and the other three midfielders complemented in terms of allowing me to kind of play in that little bit of a half and half role. So I think it's very different in terms of when you look at it. Do I think potentially Anderson can play off the left in the Premier League in terms of how this squad is? Possibly not. I think he has the ability to play to deep. I like when James said that potentially 2 8s. That could something to look at. I just think that I think Morgan, when he drops in deeper, I think he's done very well. He has that killer pass. He's up to kind of probe and make that wrist pass and kind of change the game. So I think that is a strength. I think Anderson has that quality, but he's also a bit more direct. He tries and drives at players, and he's looking at a goal. I just think when Morgan plays in that 10, there's a lot of the times where I look and he gets a little bit of space. He works a little bit of magic, and it's like go and shoot, and he's always looking for that last little pass or that assist, which at times again is good, but I think, again, when we spoke about him originally before the England squad, his difference, I look and I think, what is the difference between him for maybe attacking players in the 10s in the Premier League or the 10s looking to play? I think it's goals. If you look at, for instance, Maddison brings you goals. Maddison's always looking to score. I think Morgan has that. And like I said, it's now manager to possibly look and think, right, okay, do we potentially play him deeper? Do we go with 2 8s and maybe share the workload in terms of that creativity? But when you're that number 10 and it's on you, I just feel at times there's opportunity for him to go and shoot, to go and try and test the keeper, and he's just looking for that extra little pass all the time.
We should wrap up the game just quickly. The last goal, talking of wingers who can finish, Doku can be frustrating, James, but I guess, he's done very well there. The last person who wants to be out there is Milenkovic. So what was your take on that goal?
Yeah, look, Forest was stretched at that point. I think Haaland turns in the middle of the pitch and gives the ball 1v1 Doku and Milenkovic. And look, I think by all accounts, I've spoken to a lot of Forest fans, and Milenkovic has been unreal for large parts of the season. But look, I think with this one, speaking from a goalkeeper's perspective, as Doku's running with the ball, I'm screaming at my defender, right back, whoever it is in that situation, just to keep him on the outside. Keep him on the outside. It narrows the angle for the goal. It gives me the best chance of making the save. So I think the biggest criticism and reason why that goal goes in is he allows Doku to cut inside on his right foot. And again, it might sound like I'm being overly critical, but I don't think Doku really does much. There's not a big step over. There's a little bit of a shimmy. He doesn't really blitz past him. It's more just drop of the shoulder onto his right foot, and it opens that goal. And as soon as you open that goal on the right foot, Doku can reverse it. He can bend it round Matt Sells. So you're almost a bit of a sitting duck as a goalkeeper. So look, at this point, Forest are chasing the game. It makes it 3-0. Game's sort of done, gone to bed. But I think, yeah, in that situation, I'd like to see my defender keeping him outside, delaying him, not allowing him to cut inside. If Doku goes and then hits one with his left foot, as a keeper, you then back yourself from that angle to make the save. But as soon as he opens that goal up, he's got choice of where he wants to put the ball.
Yeah, it didn't feel, James, like a night where Matt Sells could do much more than he did. But any of those goals he could have done better on at all for you?
No, not for me. I think if you're being ultra critical, I saw a slow-mo of the last goal, and as he goes to spring off his left foot, if you look the angle of his left foot, he doesn't quite get it planted in time to spring across to his left, but I don't think he gets there anyway. Look, makes a really good save from Haaland sort of 4 minutes in, as that ball gets cut back. Haaland on his right foot shifts it into a good area. then makes a really good save about 70 minutes in. De Bruyne, there's a little deflection on it as De Bruyne shoots, and it's low to his left, and he just gets it down around the post. But yeah, in terms of overall play, I thought Matt Sells was absolutely fine. I don't think he did a lot wrong in my eyes. I don't think he could have done any more for the goals. Look, in these games when you're going to give up more chances to the opposition, you need your goalkeeper to make saves, and he's made saves when called upon. So yeah, no sort of qualms from me really with Matt Sells' performance.
Just as we wrap things up before we move on to the United game, Lewis, just in terms of how kind of fans have reacted to the defeat, it feels like there's two distinct camps, and you can kind of see both sides to me. Half the people saying, which I agree with, we played the top 5 away now, and we've only lost to 2 of them, City and Arsenal, who are the best teams. And then on the other side, people saying, well, we've gone to Arsenal and we've gone to City, and we've been very open. It feels like we've really gone for it totally differently to we did against Liverpool, and we've been beaten too easily. Are you in where are you on that? It's a difficult question, I guess. Are you somewhere in the middle on that, or are you distinctly in one camp where we should be doing better, or we're 6th and everything's pretty rosy in the garden?
No, I'm definitely positive. I'm definitely when you look at it, we're 6th in the league. We've had a terrific start. We've gone to Liverpool. We've got a result there. We went to Chelsea. We've got a point there. We've every game we've been in this season, we've always been in the game. At times, yes, it maybe have gone against us, but that happens in football. But I think let's strip everything back to the start of the season before a ball was kicked. If someone had said this going to kind of like December, this is where we would be. Not a problem. Like, snap their hands off completely. And I understand some fans when it says when we go into these places, but we go to places now when we're looking at and we're expecting something. We're not going to these places thinking, right, let's just keep the score down to minimum as possible. It's a different outlook. It's a different kind of look towards going into these games. I think we have to be positive. We have to enjoy where we are, enjoy the moment. I always said there will be a blip. The big thing for me is we took care, even though I said the performance against it wasn't the best, we got the 3 points. And for me, that shows signs of a very... So we took control and we took advantage of what we needed to do, which allows us to go and play these games. And hopefully, as James says at the start of the programme, if we get anything from them, it's a bonus. We go to Manchester United on Saturday. They're still trying to find where they are. I know they had the good result at home against Everton, but again, you look at them against Arsenal, they struggle a little bit. So they're still finding where they are. I think we have a way of playing. I think we're confident in that way. I think the manager potentially has to maybe decide personnel-wise a little bit more, especially away from home. But again, we're going into that game against Saturday optimistic, confident that potentially we could come away with something. And I think as a Nottingham Forest fan, in terms of where we've been over the last few years, where we are now, I think going into that hoping and optimistic to get something, I think that's a very good place to be.
Do you think we're too confident in the way we play compared to? I'm labelling the point a bit, I know, but I put it as the title in the slide for the episode, so I feel I have to ask about it. But we went to Liverpool and we played. We were very hard to break through. We were very compact, and we've gone to United, City, and Arsenal, and we've really I sort of admire Nuno for doing it. He's really backed his players and said, "We'll go toe to toe with you." Do we maybe need to be less toe to toe and a bit more conservative? I guess I don't know what the word is.
Listen, I think that's down to the manager, his staff, or his analysts. They'll be doing so much work and getting all that information. And there's a reason why they decided that Liverpool, they was going to go a certain way, set up a certain way, formation and personnel different. They decided they've seen something potentially different in them games that they can maybe go and exploit. And they do that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I think let's look at the positive of that. We're going to them teams, top 2 teams in this league. We go in there thinking we can go and exploit them instead of going in there, sitting and hoping it's something. So I think it just shows where we've come as a football club, where we've come as a squad. And I think it's a really positive place to be in.
We'll touch on the Man United game shortly. James has had some interesting thoughts about how you maybe go about that one. But just before that, we've got a second sponsor for this episode. If you are looking for some blinds, some shutters, anything like that heading into Christmas, Vesta Blinds cover the whole of Notts. They'll go into Leicester, they'll go into Derbyshire, made-to-measure blinds. They are owned by a Forest fan called James Rowan, who came up to me at the NAV. That sponsorship reaping rewards for me there, certainly. So he is the man for you. Thanks very much to James. If you're looking for some blinds, some shutters, anything like that. James Belshaw, here's a question you expect to get asked today. Have you got blinds, curtains, or shutters at home?
I've got curtains. I'm married to an interior designer, so I get zero say in what goes in my house. So yeah, we've got curtains in here.
See, I was going to say that's the wrong answer, and you need to buy a whole new set of shutters and blinds for Mrs. Belshaw. That wouldn't go down well by the sound of it.
No, Mrs. Belshaw already cost me a fortune in terms of interior improvement. So yeah, let's just leave these curtains up the way they are, Matt. They're perfectly fine. But I'm sure your guy there does perfectly good shutters.
Very good. You saved yourself at the end there. Saved yourself at the end. Right, back to the game. Just looking at the United game briefly. We'll have a proper preview tomorrow. Well, a slightly abridged one, actually, with just myself and Paul, just looking at maybe how we go about it. But it's particularly on United, this is how they always line up. And Amorim, they always seem to play this 3-4-2-1 that he played at Sporting. And I highlight it. I went to ask James about it. I wasn't going to ask Greg when he was coming on, but I'll ask Lewis as well. They play with 2 10s. 2 10s really killed us last night. How do we go about stopping, whether it's Garnacho and Mount or Fernandes and Rashford or whoever? What can we do tactically, potentially, James, to maybe limit the impact of those 2 10s and that 3 men at the back system?
So there's 2 ways that kind of Forest have set up. If you take the Man City game here, if they're going to go a back 3, they're going to be matching up Man U man for man. Now, away from home at Old Trafford, going toe to toe. Look, I know it's not the Man U side of yesteryear, but look, there's still quality players. Is that going to be the smartest thing? I don't know. You switch to a back 4, but then you've got an overload in midfield. So if you were going to play a back 4, like we discussed earlier, I'd potentially want to see a 3 in midfield instead of the 2. So I'd want to see, instead of having Gibbs White as a 10, maybe you sit 1 in, then you have the 2 8s as we discussed. Elliott might come in. Gibbs White can also play that. I think with matching them up in this system, when you're matching a 3-4-3 or 3-4-2 on whatever you want to call it, the big battle is out wide. If their wing backs push Forest wing backs back and Forest are defending in a back 5, it's going to be a long night. So that's where you're playing a little bit of cat and mouse with the wing backs. Can you push those wing backs all the way back? Where do you draw the line? Who engages? Who comes out and then doubles up? Is it the outside central midfield player? Does he come out and double up? Are you asking the wingers, if he goes with the same team and he plays Jota and Elanga, are you asking the wingers to drop back in and double up and help out with the fullbacks? But again, you end up being pushed into a very defensive formation. Now, a thing that I sort of thought about, look, I've not seen Forest a lot this season, but could you see a world where Forest go 2 up top? Because if you put 2 up front there, say you play a Wanye and Wood up front, and you have those 2 up against that back 3 of United, those 2 could very well occupy the back 3. That then gives Forest less of an underload in the middle of the pitch. They've got an extra man in midfield. So if you've got that sitting midfield player in a 3-5-2, they can help doubling up with the centre halves on the 10s. They can also go out wide to deal with Malacia or Dallo, whichever side it's on. So there's lots of options. For me, I can see Nuno starting with a 3. I think Forest look more solid with a 3, but I think if you're matching them up, you really need to rely on the wingers doing a good defensive job. So that's, if it is Jota and Elanga, if they're going to drop in and double up in wide areas and do an effective job, then I think that's going to be crucial, because if you play a 3 and you've got the 3 in this instance dealing with Højlund, Garnacho and Mount, you haven't really got room for one of them to slide out unless you're bringing your opposite side fullback back in. So Forest can stay narrow, and if the ball is out with Dallo, they can bring the right wing back, in to help the right side centre back, and then you've still got a 4v3 there. I think that's the way Nuno will go. I think he'll stick the 2 in there, and I think he'll have the 3 up top, Wood, and then, like I said, whichever wingers play. But you're relying on your wingers to get back in and help, and you're relying on the back 3 and the opposite side wing back to tuck across. So you've still got man for man and a spare across the back line. So there's numerous ways you can look at it. I think he'll go with that. I think Forest look more solid. You look to try and compact the pitch, narrow the pitch up, and then if your wingers are picking up those half spaces sort of between De Ligt, Dalot, Ugarte, in those sort of areas, you can get the ball to those wingers and they can break with pace. I think that's going to be crucial. Breaking with pace, running at that back three, getting balls into the box, and then if you play Gibbs White in a 2, assuming he plays, you're then relying on him getting forward to support the attack, creating from deep, threading those balls through to the wide players, and then, as Lewis said, if you've got a striker like Chris Wood, you need to get crossed into the box, you need to get service into him. So hopefully the wing backs, again, if they win their individual battles against Malacia and Dalot, or whoever plays wing back for United, they can then get balls into the box, and it gives Chris Wood the best chance of scoring. So for me, that's sort of the way I'd go. I just wanted to throw out the 2 up top, whether that's something that he could potentially do, because it still gives you an overload. It gives you a 3v2 in the midfield if the 2 up top can occupy the back three, and then you're man for man all over. So yeah, maybe something that you could think about.
Excellent, very interesting. I mean, what do you think about 2 up top, but also the game in general, Lewis? I mean, I know they're not the team they were, but it feels like I feel like we're going to need to put a really good performance in to even get a point. Because new manager, he's playing different players, they're all keen to impress. I feel like this is a really tough one, to be honest. How are you feeling about it, and what James has said there?
No, I think it was. I think James has given really good information there and good insight in it. The only thing I would add to that is originally your first question was that we've had trouble with them kind of 2 number 10s. I think it's a different game. If you look at Manchester City, the way they played Bernardo Silva out wide, which basically stretched the pitch, that allowed the 2 De Bruyne and Grealish to get in them pockets. The difference, what you hear is obviously they played the 3-4-3. So that 4, well, you look at Malacia and Dalot, they're more fullbacks. So for one, they're not going to be as high. So they're not going to be as high onto our fullbacks. What Manchester City did well, Doku engaged with Aina and Bernardo Silva Moreno. So that pulled the fullbacks out, which left the 2 centre halves with Haaland isolated, which allowed the De Bruyne and Grealish to pick up them pockets. The 2 potentially you look on this graphic, if you look at Garnacho and Mount, they're 2 different 10s. They're more of your runner number 10s, and this formation, how he plays it, they're more kind of they're your more runners in behind to stretch the pitch. They're not really your pocket number 10s. Whereas De Bruyne and Grealish are more pick up them little half spaces to get on the half turn to go and try and throw passes. Mount and Garnacho are more direct. So they will try and stretch the pitch a lot more. So you won't really find a lot of them players into them pockets. But it's to say that James has made some great points there. I don't mind. I know that I can recall there was a game at home. Was it Bournemouth that he started with a 2, or was it
Fulham.
Wolves? I know there was a Fulham. So yeah, there was a game early on. He started with a 2 at home, and it didn't work at all. So I'm not sure. I like I said, I think in terms of the formations, in terms of the difference in the 2 teams, I think they're totally different. They're totally different in terms of their characteristics, what they want. I think Manchester City are more of a stretch the pitch wide, which allows their ball players to go and find them kind of half spaces. Where I think Manchester United, the 2 behind the main striker, are more direct and more going to stretch the pitch. Obviously, you look at Fernandes and Ugarte in there as a 2. I feel that we can overrun them. I think that's a really important part to try and get right. But again, you're looking at their wide and their width. It comes from 2 fullbacks, and really that's what they are. Yes, they're going to have a bit more life forward, but they're always going to revert defensively because that's what they are. And again, if we can try and isolate De Ligt, Mazraoui in them kind of eye spaces with our pace in wide areas, I think we can have some joy. So listen, I look at that again, very, very good players, a very good team, still in transition, still trying to find out what the manager wants from them. So there's a lot of information to take on board. Just tell you, it's a very, very tough situation when a new manager comes in and he's trying to also give you a lot of information, but you're playing games at the same time. It's there's a lot going on, and sometimes you're having to try and kind of adapt on the pitch in real time, and that's hopefully where we can then exploit that weakness.
Excellent, good stuff. Really interesting from both of you. Thank you very much for that. Any final thoughts, James? Anything you want to add before we go, just on what you've witnessed and how you feel about the way Forest are shaping up?
I just think the main thing about Forest at the minute, from obviously living in Nottingham, all my mates are Forest fans, is just positivity. I think anytime you're speaking to people about Forest and what's going on at the club and the way that they've taken to life in the Premier League, built on obviously the first year, the big investment, the high turnover of players, did the job last year, staying up, and then this year they've really kicked on to a new level. So look, we're talking about Forest here. We're analysing Forest against Man United and looking at Forest realistically going and getting something from the game. So that should speak volumes as to the leaps and bounds that Forest have come on this past, well, probably the past like 6 months really, the way that they've played. So look, it's a fantastic time to be a Forest fan. They're 6th, 7th in the league, way clear of the relegation zone. Like I said, let's be optimistic. Let's see where Forest can end up. But yeah, what a great time to be a Forest fan.
You can't say let's see where we will end up. Your dad.
I know. I do that. All my Notts County fellow Notts County fans won't be too happy with that little slip there.
Just last one for you, Lewis. Just picking up quickly on something James said there that I thought of while I was making my notes list and then forgot to mention. I feel like you do have to remember that this team finished 17th in the league 2 years in a row, and it's not vastly different. I mean, teams that finish 17th in the league don't tend to be up around 6th, halfway through, almost not halfway through, a third of the way through the next season. It's obvious, but perspective, it does feel like a big thing still, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot. There's many a teams in the Premier League that's been in the Premier League for a lot longer than us would take our position. Very much so. I think there's a lot of teams looking in envy at us in terms of where we are. I think we've had a really, really good spell. You can't go through a season without going through a little bit of adversity, a little bit of a blip, things not going your way. I think potentially you look at times where we've probably got a little bit of luck in certain results and certain things which you're going to have, and sometimes that swings the other way and you don't get it. But I think if we look at it in potentially a month's time, kind of in the January, where are we after this period? And listen, if we struggled in this period, then okay, we just got to realise and reset where we are, and can we just maintain and have a strong end to the season? On the flip side, if we really get a good few results in this period, where does that take us in the January window? Potentially go and strengthen. So I think either way, we're in a great position. And like you said, we've finished 17th, and I don't think, hopefully, fingers crossed, I want to say to it, I don't think we're going to be in that position come the end of this season this year. So it's just continue to think, right, where have we come from? And that's the main thing. Where have we come from? Where have we been? We've had 2 seasons where we've pretty much just stayed up. We're going to the latter parts of the season, still thinking about our safety in staying up in the Premier League. We are on a totally different kind of side of that now, and we're looking up. We're talking about going to Manchester City, and we felt like we could have got somewhere out of the game. We're going to Manchester United. We feel optimistic. The squad's in a great place. The manager's implementing what he wants to do. I think we've got personnel that now comes out of the team. We've got players that are more than justified to come into the team that can offer different things, but also the same level. So again, it's a really, really, really positive place to be. I understand as fans, we just want the best results as possible, but sometimes that doesn't happen, especially the best league in the world. So let's just kind of remember where we are. Let's just enjoy it game to game. And like I said, in an important period now, let's see where we are in a month's time, and then we can kind of analyse how our kind of second half of the season is going to look.
Excellent, excellent. Right, I think we'll leave it there. Thanks very much to everyone who's been with us this evening. Do hit like. If you've enjoyed this, you can subscribe, become a channel member. Do sign up for Patreon or give us a lovely review on iTunes or Spotify. James, thank you very much for joining us. And we did say at the start of the show, Harrogate almost got Forest in the FA Cup, but you've got Leeds United away. So you've got to be looking forward to that one, haven't you?
Yeah, no, Forest away was quite high on my list of draws that we could get. But look, for a club like ours to get Leeds United away, it's a bit of a local derby. So yeah, one that we're really looking forward to in January. Look, you want to test yourselves against the best. They're going great guns in the champ. They should be a Prem team, shouldn't they, Leeds? So yeah, one that we're looking forward to.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, we'll hopefully have you back on the other side of Christmas, and Lewis will have you back on as often as we can, work allowing and football allowing and all that kind of stuff. But good to have you both with us. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll do a bit more Man United chat. No opposition preview this week, sadly, just because the quick turnarounds made it pretty tricky to get a United person on. But then we'll be back post-match as well, and then we'll turn our attention towards Aston Villa. So, yeah, good to have you company. Have a good day. And if we don't see you tomorrow, hopefully see you soon.